It's time for another one-page WordPress web design with Elementor, and this is what we're going to be designing in the theme of a makeup artist. And yeah, I know it's a pretty simple structure, but it's just helping you to get the best out of Elementor. Let's get started. Obviously in WordPress, go and click add new page, give it a title. I'm going to call it makeup. You'd probably call it homepage or something a little bit more sensical, then hit edit with Elementor. Now for the purpose of what we're doing here, because I'm not actually going to use any Elementor templates for header, footer, or build a 5-6 page website. I'm just giving you an example of what we could do with Elementor. I'm going to hit the settings down here in the bottom left, and I'm going to say hide the title because I don't need to see it. And I'm also going to set my page layout to be Elementor canvas. By doing that, it gets rid of any default header or footer, or even an imaginary one that you might get with the Hello theme or with Elementor. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to do a one page. I'm going to put a fake header in that you would normally do as a header template. Also, I'm just going to be using pixels just to speed through the tutorial. If you want to learn more about your templates, responsive design, font clamp calculation, and loads more tips, trips, hints, and strategies, then go and check out our Learn How to Build an Elementor Web Design course, which loads of people love, and I would recommend that you go and sign up if you want to get to know a whole heap more. But let's just crack on with what we're doing here. Go and add a container that's going to house basically the contents for the header. Remember, this is not a header template. I'm just sticking a header on here just so that we can see how the page would look. So I'm going to go and add in a simple container like this. And into this container, I'm going to go and set some parameters. So I'm going to say the width of it is 1140, which it normally is by default. You do not have to do what I just did with the 1140. It's force of habit and something I like to do. I'm going to go to my advanced tab and I'm going to go and set my padding to be 20 on the left and 20 on the right. So that means I start with 1140 and I've taken away 20 and 20, which means my working estate is going to be 1100, which is pretty good depending on if you're viewing this website on a big monitor or even on a laptop. And it's how I like to operate. Let's now go and drop in a logo and a fake navigation menu. I'm going to go and drop in an icon. Now you could use an image if you want. So if your logo is an image, please make sure it's a WebP image, and you can convert that using bulkresizePhotos.com. Like I said, if there's anything I talk about here that doesn't totally make sense, you really need to check out my Learn How to Build an Elementor website course where we go through a load of this stuff in step detail. Let's go and change this to be a logo. So I'm going to go and click upload SVG. And I'm now going to upload an SVG icon that I've created in Canva. And I'm going to pick this logo over here and I'm going to insert it. Now at the moment, it's pretty titchsky small. Don't worry about that. Let's go over to the content tab. I'm going to align it to be to the left. Then I'm going to go to the style tab. I'm going to say fit to size, and that actually makes it a little bit bigger. This is actually something you will see quite a bit. You drop in an icon and it's super small. Always hit fit to size. And now if I want, I can make it bigger or smaller. I'm just going to make this be about 50 like that. I think that's more than enough for what we need. Next thing I'm going to add into this container is a nav menu. Now, if you're a bit unsure about where things are going to sit, let me show you for a moment. If I go over here and I type menu, hit WordPress menu, it drops in and it goes below. If I go and hit the navigator icon over here, you'll see now here I can see container, which I'm going to rename to be header, and we have icon and WordPress menu. They're sat below one another. If, however, it had gone and done that and you wanted to rearrange it, you could either pick it up and drag it, or just go over to your navigator, pick it up and drag it like that as well. Either way works perfectly fine. What I'm then going to do is go over to my header though, and I'm now going to change the layout. At the moment, this is set to be column. So every time you add something, it drops below one another. Instead, I'm going to set it to be a row. Can you see what it did? I could also do a reverse row, which flips it, or a reverse column, so the logo and the nav menu now switch. But let's just put it as a row. But I don't like the positioning. I want my menu to actually be on the right-hand side. So over here, I'm going to hit space between. Watch the menu. Boom. It's gone over. But if we just pop it back over to the left, can you see it's not perfectly in line? Let's go and sort that out. Over here, align items. Let's hit center. Look at that. It moved down a little bit. Let's now put space between, and we are back over there. That is really quick and easy. We just went and created a container to house our header items. Let's now just very quickly work on the nav menu. I'm going to ensure that it's aligned to the right hand side. If I had other menus available, I could go and pick them. Now this is just a fake website, so I could pick whatever I want. I'm just going to leave it as the cons menu for now. Main menu, header menu, whatever you want. I'm going to get rid of my pointer underneath because I don't like that underline effect that you can see over there. I really don't like that. You could, if you want, go for a background effect as well. It's entirely up to you what you want to go for. I'm going to go with none. I'm going to set my mobile drop down to be a full width. Believe me, you definitely want to do that. If you don't do that, when you go to your mobile menu, it pushes things down, which does not look good, in my opinion. I'm going to go to my style tab, go to my typography. Now, I have custom loaded the railway font, and I strongly recommend you do that. And like I said, go and sign up for our course if you want to learn more about that. So make sure you use a custom loaded font. Don't always use a Google font because you're fetching from the Google website. Even though you might think you're not fetching, you are fetching. And I'm warning you, don't go for that. I'm just going to set my size over here to be 16 for now. Again, I would normally use REM, but for the purpose of the tutorial, I'm only going to be using pixel. So anyone who wants to make a comment about that, yeah, get over it, okay? We're using pixel here. And I'm going to set the weight of this to be 400 normal. You can see that it's slightly thinned out a little bit. For my letter spacing, I'm going to go and add in a 1 just to space out the letters a little bit. And the final thing I'm going to do before we jump over to the mobile view is just give a bit of spacing at the top. So I'm going to go to my container for the header, and I'm going to go and add in a little bit of padding just to move this down by about 5, and I think that's looking pretty reasonable. Now let's go and check how is this going to look on the mobile. So let's go over to responsive mode down here. We can look at it in the tablet or we can look at it in the mobile. Either way, you're going to be doing the same thing, but we're just going to focus on the mobile. If we click on the container, we have a 20 and a 20 on the left and right. Is that okay for you, or do you want to take it more outward? So if you did, you would get rid of these values and maybe switch it to be maybe 5 or 10 on the left and right. I prefer 20 and 20. I find it just looks quite nice on the mobile and things aren't squashed up against the edges. The only thing I'm going to do really is go to my icon, and for the mobile, I'm going to shrink it down to be 40 on the mobile, and then I'll adjust my navigation menu because you can see it's got a grey background there, which it didn't really have on the desktop version. So we just got to sort that out. Go to the style tab, go to the toggle button, and over here we have background, and I could, if I want, pick a color or even set it to be transparent. I'm just going to pick white for now. And you will notice that I already have some global colors. How did I set that? Well, over here where you have the hamburger, you have site settings, and this is where you would have gone and set your font. So I went and loaded up the railway font and ensured that was my default. And when it comes to colors over here, I've gone and created some default. This is a tutorial website and I won't necessarily use all of these colors, but I've got a range over here. But this is where you would do that. And again, there's stuff you should be doing with your WordPress website and your elemental settings and your elemental features, page speed optimization, and other things that I strongly recommend you go away and look at. I've got other videos, but I do recommend the web design course. When I click the bars, it will open up to reveal the items, and you can see them here. But can you see we can't actually see them yet? So let's just go and address that. Let's go to our drop down, go and set the text color. There you go, they now appear. I don't actually like the background you get when you hover over them, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to change my background to be white, and I'm going to set my text as well. If you feel like you want the words to be bigger, go in and adjust your typography. If you want them to be more spaced out, over here you have options for vertical padding as well, which you can see over there. So let's just leave it like that. So that's our mobile menu, and we also have our desktop, and we're going to start flying through this. Now let's go on the hero banner. We're going to add in a flex box, and it's going to be one container, and then into there we're going to add in a child container, and I'll explain why in a moment. First thing I'm going to do is go to my advanced tab, and I'm going to zero everything out. I'm also going to ensure that it's set to be a 1140, which it is, and I'm okay. The reason why I'm going to add in another container into here is because I want it to have a bit of a rounded border. And if you try and do it on the parent container, even when you start to add in your width to control it, it doesn't always work out properly. So I'm going to add in a child container because I also don't want my image to be full width. I want it to be kind of be contained within a certain size, which is 1140. because that's what's going to flow through the rest of the website. So into this container, the parent container, I'm going to drop in another one. And again, I'm just going to zero everything out like that. So it's full up against the 1140. Let's go to our navigator. So over here, I'm just going to call this hero, and I'm now just going to call this BG. So I know it's the background inside. Clicking on the BG, I'm going to go to my style and I'm going to click on background type. I'm not going to add in a plain color. I'm going to go and drop in an image, and we're going to go for this one over here. And you can't see it properly. Don't worry, we're going to adjust it. Let's just go to our layout first and set our height. You could do this in pixel if you want. I'm actually going to go and set this to be a VH of 65. 65 VH means of the viewport height, I'm using up 65%. 100 would be 100%. Because we have a header, it won't fill up 100% because, well, I'll show you what it does. Let me look. If I do 100%, the header is taking up a bit, and the full 100% is further down. So when I scroll down, there you go. Can you now see we get the top and the bottom there? Can you see it? There's the bottom, there's the top. That's 100%. So just bear in mind, if you've got any items above or below whatever, it's not until you align it up that you'll get it. I'm going to go for 65, which is 65%. We still can't see the image, what's going on, because we haven't defined it or the layout of it. Let's go and set the position to be a top center like that. And there we go. We've got the face just crept in a little bit. We're also going to set the resolution to be full. I'm going to set this to be a no repeat. Won't make any difference yet unless it was a really small image, and then you get the tiled effect, which I don't always like. And now we're going to set the size. I'm going to go for cover, and that will now put that entire image into there. If I had gone for contain, can you see what it's done? We've got this extra excess bits on the left and right because it now contains the full height and the full width within that estate. I'm actually okay with cover. Now, what you may want to do is just check how does that look, because this is really super important. If you don't start to do that, you might make it look perfect. Then when you view it by hitting the preview over here with the chevron, suddenly you go, oh, the image is too much to the left or too much to the right. And you might need to go over here and either adjust it. So you might go say, oh, we're going to go for a bottom center, for instance, and move it around. Or you might go for custom and you start adjusting exactly how it sits in terms of the X and Y axes. Let's just go and put this back to the top center like that. Now let's go and start adding in our wording. I'm going to add in a couple of headers and a call to action button. I'm going to click the grid and I'm going to drop in header. Now let me go and change the text. Dazzling the scene, I'm going to make it be a H1 and I'm going to right align it. So it goes all the way over there. Your H1, your H2, very important for your keywords. Maybe it was going to be makeup artist California, makeup artist for the, I don't know, whatever, dazzling something. Make sure you get your words in. I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this tutorial, but it is important that you start to consider and do a bit of research into that. Let's now go over to our style. Let's go and set this to be a black color. And for the typography, I am just going to use pixel. Normally I'd use REM, font clamp calculations, go and see our other tutorials, or go and sign up for our course where we go through this in step-by-step detail, which I know you will like. I'm going to go and try a size of about, no, that's way too big. Let's go with 100, something like that for pixel. I'm going to set my weight to be 700, and I'm not going to go for uppercase or anything. I think that looks pretty much okay. Now, I want my words to be over on the left-hand side. Now, there's two ways I could have done this. I could have dropped into here another child container, like within the child container already, and then said, right, all of my wording sits over here, and then the image sits on the right-hand side. However, I'm going to add in a little bit of padding to my heading to move everything over. In fact, not to the heading. I'm going to do it to the container. Clicking on the container, and remember, if you get stuck with where you're clicking, go and hit the navigator and make sure you've clicked on the right one, because I've gone and clicked on the hero. That's not what we want. I actually want to be clicking on the background in one. Let's go to our advanced tab. Let's go to our padding, and I'm going to go with 500. I think that's about right. However, it has taken things over to the left quite a bit, so maybe I want to add in a bit more padding here. If I go with 100, can you see what it's done? I've started to rearrange the layout by adding in some padding. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this heading, and I'm going to add in some other words. But that's all looking a little bit big. I'm going to change that to be a H2. Now, every web page should not have more than one header, one tag per page, okay? You can have a few H2s if you want. You can have more than a few, but then you want to work in a hierarchical order. H1, H2, H3, H4, like a pyramid. It's not a pyramid scheme. Let's go to the Style tab. Let's go to Typography, and I'm going to go for a 60. Remember, I normally work with REM, but for the purpose of this tutorial, we're just speeding it through, and some people like to learn with Pixel. Hey, get over it, all right? It's totally fine. I'm going to leave my weight as a 700 because it does work quite well. Now, notice how this is all aligning quite nicely at the moment. I mean, of course, if I increase the font a bit, it goes out of line then, it goes past the big header, but I've gone with the 60. This is inheriting the 500 and the 100. Can you see the lines over there? Look at the borders there and the line from what we did in this container here. So if you want to define your style, you can do. Now, with regards to this heading, I am going to move it away from the top. I do want to point out that if I go to the background container, go to the layout tab, down here where we have the gap, if I was to go and pop in a 30, every item I add in here will have 30 pixel gap, but I want to be a little bit prescriptive. So I'm going to go to my second heading and I'm going to say, give me about 10 from the top. I want a space, but not huge amount of space, because now what I'm going to do is going to drop in a button. So let's go over, make sure we're on the background container, go to our grid, and I'm going to drop in a button like that. Really simple. Let's right align it. Let's now go and change the text. Let's elevate your style. Now, this is where you would go and pop in your link. If you got a hashtag, you might have it go to a particular part of your page where you've assigned an anchor. Again, go and look at our other tutorials if you want to understand anything about menu anchors. You could also drop in a URL and take them to an Amazon page or a completely different website. Or you might want to go and type in part of a word, and wherever you've got the word one that appears somewhere within that page, you can now go and pick, say, Test Imran. So this is now another page on the website, and it might take them there. So it might go to About, Services, Contact page, something like that. Let's go and adjust the style of this orangey color that we have over here. Let's go to the typography. I'm going to make this be a 700. I'm going to make the size be an 18, and I'm also going to make this be a bit of an uppercase. I'm going to give this a border radius of 20 and make it be a bit more rounded. I could also add in a box shadow so it jumps out, but I'm going to undo that because I'm not always crazy about that. Feel like the button is too big? Go and adjust the padding, which I've just done. Now let's go to the Advanced tab, and I'm going to now give this a little bit more space. So for the heading 2 and heading 1, I had a 10 pixel extra gap there. I'm going to increase this 40 because I just want a little bit more breathing space. Now I'm going to align all my items because at the moment, everything is sat right at the top. Let's now go to our actual background container. Notice I'm doing everything on the child container because everything currently sits here. Everything is inside of that container. If I start to do it here and I go, right, let's align to the center, it's not going to do much because it's only got one container in there. So there's not much give for it to move. Let's go to our background container, and now let me move that to the middle. Look what it's done. It's gone right to the middle, but you will notice the button looks closer to the bottom. If you go to the button, can you notice at the bottom, the line, the border is boom, it's right at the bottom there with the border, that pink line. Look at the heading. Can you see there's a bit of gap there? And that's just because of the way headings and some text editors are. There's always a little bit extra give. I'm going to go to the Advanced tab for my heading, and I'm going to now zero out the margin and padding, and I'm going to keep hitting this until I just about get there. About -11 will do me. When I now view that, that looks a little bit better and more in the center. That is basically our container for the desktop kind of done. There's just one little thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my background container, go to my style, go to my border, and I'm going to give this about 20 as well. It's all looking pretty good at the moment, but don't rush into doing every other container on your website. Go and address how it looks on your mobile, because if you don't, you're going to regret it. Now, obviously, you got to go look at your tablet as well, but I'm going to focus on the mobile. And you can instantly see the problem, the text, the image. I mean, we can't even see the person of interest now, and the wording is all over the place. Let's go and address that. Let's first go to our background. Remember, we got 500 and 100. Well, I'm going to zero that all out. Don't worry, your desktop will remember the values. We're on the mobile view where things can be different, and you're allowed to have them different. Let's first address the background image. Let's go to our style and you'll see here we now have a hashtag over the image. That's because we can choose another one. So I'm going to hit choose image and I'm going to drop in a copy of that image. Ta-da! But what we need to do is turn it into a portrait style rather than a horizontal. So I'm going to click edit image. I'm going to hit scale and I'm going to change the dimensions over here to be 700. Now, as soon as I do that, the width will also have changed. Hit the scale, then go and hit back. You must hit back before you go into crop it, because if you don't, it will revert back to the original scale size. It doesn't need to be 1080, 700 in height is okay. Now I'm going to hit edit image again. I'm going to hit crop and I'm going to move my mouse. As soon as I did that, the values here changed. I'm going to change that to be 500 and then I'm going to position this to be where I want. Now I know that if I go over here, if you imagine the size of the screen, and a great way to do it is I know that the iPhone XR size is going to be, say, a 378. So if I go with 378 over here, this gives me an idea that if I have it like that, I've not got a lot of a state for the wording, have I? Which could be problematic. But if I was to go with something like that, can I get my words to squeeze in? So you're going to have to think very hard and careful about how do you want this to look? So I'm going to go with this, but I'm going to set this to be a 500 and I'm going to move it to be somewhere like that. I'm then going to hit apply crop, save edit. And then I'm going to hit select and that image will now come through. So there's my desktop and now there's my mobile. I'm going to set this to now be top right like that. You can see she's moved in, but I still have a bit of a state. So now let's go and adjust that. Let's go over to our heading and for the mobile, I'm going to set the alignment to be on the left. Before it was aligned on the right. And don't worry, look, it is still okay on the desktop. Let's now adjust our sizing. I'm going to go with a 40. Now let's do the second heading. And I'm going to go for about 24. By the way, over here, when you do go to Elementor, it tends to stick at 360. I like to work with 378 as my minimum for my width over there because that is the minimum size for an iPhone XR. And you kind of know that most people now are going to have a bigger size anyway, or even if they've got the standard XR size, which will be what the standard sizes for minis as well, this works okay. Let's go to our button and I'm going to left align that as well. And in terms of the size, I'm going to change that to be a 16. Now, I don't mind if the button overlaps a little bit because buttons are allowed to overlap a little bit. It's more about when you have text where here it's a little bit unclear. But let's now start to address that as well. Let's go to our background container, not the parent container, the background container. Go to the advanced tab and I'm going to say give me 20 from the left and 150 from the right. Now to some people that might look okay. However, I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I feel like this needs to be more inwards and I would prefer it if my button went all the way across. So what I'm going to do is rather than apply a right over here, I'm going to go over to my heading and I'm going to apply my padding here. So I'm going to go 150 on the first heading. On the second heading, I'm going to go with a 175 and I'm not going to apply anything to the button because I don't mind the button being there. I'm also just going to address the spacing that we have here and give it about 20. And I've increased the size now to be 55 a heading. That's how it looks on the mobile. And then this is the desktop. Now, one thing you will notice for those that are eagle-eyed is, can you see that border radius over there? And then we don't have any gap on the left and right. Now, it's up to you. You could, if you want, go over to your background container and say, okay, for the mobile, we won't actually have that effect going on. So you have it on the desktop, which you can still see there, but you don't have it on the mobile view. Or you could put it back in, go over to your parent container and add in 20 on the left and right. But then you've got to mess around again with your sizing of your items and all of that. So have a think about, do you want to include it or not? For the purpose of what we're doing here, I'm going to exclude it. So I'm just going to set that back to 0 so we don't have to worry about it for what we're doing here on the mobile. On the desktop, you can always do a bit more visualization. You can do a bit more animation as well and funkier stuff. Mobiles are meant to be a little bit more crisper, clearer, get to the point. I don't want to be scrolling forever just to go, oh, is that all you're going to show me now? Get to the point. Let's now fly through the rest of this. Right, let's go down here. Let's drop in another container. This is actually going to have 2 child containers. So we drop it in, boom. Let's hit the navigator. Let's rename this. I'm going to call it intro. I'm going to zero out all the margin and padding, and I'm going to do the same for the containers inside. just because I like to have like loads of control over where things sit inside. Make sure your parent container is a 1140, which it already is. Let's go to container 1. I'm going to drop in an image. Let's go to the style, go to the background type. I'm going to go for this one over here. We're going to go and set this to be a center, no repeat. And I'm going to set this to be a cover so we can see some more of the image. Now, don't worry about the fact we can't see it properly. All that it is right up against the other hero banner. We're going to add some spacing in a moment. I'm just going to get my contents in, and then we can stylize it a bit better. I'm going to drop in a heading into child container number 2, and you can see it there. If you get a bit stuck, just go and click on the container, click on the grid, and then click it, and it will drop it into that relevant container. And we're also going to add in a text editor as well. Now let's populate the content. So we've got a heading and we got some text. I'm just going to change this to be a H3. I'm going to go to my style tab, change the color, and we'll change the typography. I'm going to have made it a 22 in size and a 600 in weight. And the text is an 18 in pixel size for the desktop and a 400 in weight. I'm not going to mess around with the line height or the letter spacing here. And staying on child container 2, I'm going to make sure it's all linked, and I'm going to say give me 40 inside all the way, top, bottom, left and right, just to space it out. And you can see what it's done to the image over there. That's looking really nice and crisp now. Let me now go to child container 1 that contains that image. We're going to go down to the style, go to the border, and I'm going to say give me 20. Can you see there? It's gone and done the border style. But now let's go back to the parent container that contains everything. Let's go to the advanced tab, and I'm going to say give me 60 from the top. If we now just view that, this is the hero. Well, we got our header at the top. We got our hero banner. You can see that. We've now got our text. There is a bit of spacing I haven't done, which I need to address. Let me just go over here. Let's go to my container, go to the layout, and I'm going to say inside of here, give me about 20 like that. And that is now looking so much nicer, isn't it? We're starting to get a bit of flow, and notice my colors. I intentionally made sure all of my images had like a Belvedere, or I can't remember pronounce it right, a bit of a hint to the images. So even though they are very different in images, in style, in a way, in how they've been shot, you get a bit of a similarity seeping through in terms of images. It's really important you consider that. Now let's go and check how this looks on the mobile. We've already mentioned that we're not going to do the border radius, right? So let's go down here to the border, and I'm going to zero that out. Are we going to keep this image? Yes or no? I would say, why don't we swap it over? Have the text before the image. So we're going to click that container. By the way, you might want to make sure you're on the right container. Go to our layout, and at the moment, this is set to be a row. I'm going to reverse this, and I'm going to hit column reversed. Now, you may look at this and go, it's row horizontal. Why don't you do row reversed? The reason being is because, in actual fact, even though the desktop is row, on the mobile, that is actually a column. It's a bit misleading. So if I was to hit that, it's standard, but you do row reverse. Can you see it's reversed it? So if you were here, you hit that and it reverses it basically. So there we now have our text. Now I'm going to go to child container number 2, and I am going to get rid of the top because it's already got a gap there. I am going to pop in 20 on the left and right and 20 there, and I will just add in a 20 from the bottom. And then we have our image. So child container 1. I'm now just going to add in a bit of height, and we'll go with a 200 like that. So we have our text, and then we have our image, and you go back over to the mobile and everything is still the same. Now let's speed through this. Let me just minimize all of these. Let's go and duplicate the intro, and I'm going to call this services. Let's go and pick up this container, and we're going to swap it over like that. I've just moved it around, or I could have left it as it was, gone over to the parent container, gone to layout and swapped it like that. There's multiple ways you can do this, right? You can either swap it over or just use the direction to basically swap it over. Let's now change the text here, and then I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to drop in signature glam makeover, change the text. Underneath the text, I'm going to drop in an image like that. I'm going to set this to be a full, and I'm now going to pick an image from my media gallery. I'm going to set the style of this to have a 20 border all the way around as well. I'm going to duplicate it over here, but before I do that, I'm going to get rid of this container. What did you do that for? You just completely got rid of it. I did that to kind of show you how we can start with something and then just start replicating. And now I go over to this container, and I'm going to duplicate. Look at that. We now have 2 exact same copies of what we had before. Let's go and change what we have here. Now you will notice we've got Sandazzle services over here twice. There was an intention for that. Let's just go over to our layout. So here we have child container 2, heading, text, image, and child container 1. Why is that below? Well, don't forget we reversed the rows, okay? So this heading does not need to be there. I want it to be outside. And here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pick it up and I'm now going to pop it above the child containers like that. Can you see what it's done? So we have heading, child container 1, child container 2. I'm now going to rearrange things. And you might go and say, well, why don't you do that in the first place? Because I want to show you how simple and easy it is to modify. Let's go to the parent container and pop it back to be normal. Now I'm going to pick up this container and drop it below. Boom, we're back to where we were. Signature and avant-garde. But our heading is now on the left-hand side. But I want my heading to be at the top. Why is it like that anyway? Because it's not in a child container. Because everything is set as a row. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the services. And now I'm going to activate a feature over here called wrap. Watch this. You hit wrap. Boom. You get a bit of a layout shift. But don't worry. We're going to adjust this. I'm going to go to my heading. I'm going to go to the advanced tab. I'm going to say, make the width of this be 100%. Boom, that's the full 100%. Until you define what that is, it starts to go, well, we'll have the heading here and child container 1. Child container 2 can't fit there because of the amount of items. You know, we're trying to fit within 100% estate, so I'll wrap it. Well, no, if I go and say, set the heading to be 100%, it then logically goes, well, now child container 1 and child container 2 can fit. If I go to child container 1, it's 50%. Watch what happens when I go to 49. Nothing. But if I go to 51, boom. Because 51 plus 50 is greater than 100%. So you can start to modify how things sit. Let's go over to our title over here. We're going to go and set it to now be in the center. And you know what? Let's make it be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go with something like 28. Now let's double check how this all looks on the mobile. So when we scroll down, we can see the heading is in the wrong place. Okay, let's go to our services. Let's pop it into column order. So it's now going top to bottom. Okay, we've got our heading. Do we like the size of that? Let's just set it to be a 378. I'm going to say we should shrink it down to be a 26. I'm going to go to my advanced tab and I'm going to say, give him about 30 from the bottom there. I'm going to go to child container number 2 and say, give me a bit of breathing space from the top. And even though I set all of my images not to have the border there, I don't mind doing it for these because these are now particular to the services that we're offering. Let's now jump back over to our desktop. Can you see how quick we're flying through this? I'm now going to pick up this container and I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to go down here and I'm now going to hit paste. So I've made an exact copy of what I had before. Now you will notice the gap over here is bigger than what we have in all of the other areas. And that's because if we go to our child containers, you'll notice we have a 40 at the bottom. So I'm going to zero that out and I'm going to get rid of the 40 there. And I'm going to do the same for the second child container like that. And now everything has kind of moved back up into place. If you do want to have that extra gap, go and drop it in. Let's change the container over here. I'm going to pick this image, but before I add it, I'm actually going to change the orientation of it. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to crop and I'm going to move it to be more of a portrait image. So something like that. And I'm going to apply the crop. Now I haven't scaled it. I mean, I'm just rushing through this now, but scale it and then you would crop it. Let's go and hit save edit and we hit select. So that image pops in. Now the reason why it's completely cut off is because I've not set the height. If you were to go and do contain, it would basically do that, but we are going to leave it as a cover. And while we're here, I'm going to go and set the border. Yep, the border's already 20 anyway. Now I'm going to change the wording here to be about Roisin. And I've added in a load of text there. So basically we're getting a bit more insight into who is Roisin. I'm going to go to child container number 1 and I'm going to change the width of this to be 35%. I'm going to go to child container 2 and change that obviously to be 65%. So I'm making use of the estate. So if you feel like you've got too much words, but it's all becoming very, very tall, you can use the power of your estate, images to kind of add a little bit of interest. I mean, that is a lot of text. Don't get me wrong. That's a lot of text. But if you add an image next door to it, you can help to stimulate, you know, the brain to go, okay, there's an image, there's a bit of text. your eyes can move around a little bit. And it's not just boring dissertation feces. Again, jump over into the mobile and check how that looks. We've got about Roshin. That's a lot. See what I mean by there is a lot of text there, okay? So you got to watch out for that. And then we get over to this container, and I think we definitely need to make it taller. Let's go with a 430 like that. So we get to see Roisin O'Connor. Roisin Connor, I think I called her. That's even a fake name, by the way, all right? I don't know anyone called Roisin. I do know a Roisin, but I don't know a Roisin Connor. Let's just copy this over here, this in at the bottom. Let's change the background container. I mean, I have used containers here for images, but you could have just used a normal image as well. I just wanted to show you the versatility that you have. What's the point of using a container with a background image? Well, you could if you want. Let me just copy this. I could paste this over if I want, change the color of the text, drop a button on top if I want. It allows you to kind of add stuff in later on. So it kind of helps to future-proof it a little bit. Right, let's just add in a background image here. I'm going to go and grab this particular heading that we have here, drop it in like that, right or left align it, change the color to be dark. You're one step away from being noticed. Let's go over to the child container, add in a little bit of padding. I'm going to link it all and go with a 40 like that. Go to my layout, put it into the center. But then what I'm going to do is add in a bit more right margin. So we're going to go here and I'm going to change this to be something like 200. In fact, I'm going to push it over to be at the top. I'm going to type in social and I'm going to drop in social down here. So we have some social icons kick in. Move them to be to the left. Notice how I'm doing this on top of the container or inside the container with a background image, which is why it can be really, really powerful for you in what you use it with. Obviously, here is where you would go and add in your icons, you know, go and pick them. So you might want to go and do LinkedIn, for instance, go and pop in your URLs or whatever you want. Let's go to the style tab. I'm not going to go for the official color. I'm going to go for custom. For the primary color, I'm going to make it be black. No, that's the wrong one. Sorry, other way around. I'm going to go to my primary color and set that to be transparent. I'm going to make my secondary color be the orange like that. I'm going to go and add in an icon list. I'm going to change this one over here to not have an icon. I mean, if you want, you could do. I could go and type in, I don't know, mail, or was it envelope? Sorry. I could type in envelope and then add in my email address like that. But I'm actually just going to get rid of the icon, add in the email address. And then over here, I'm going to say mail to like that with a colon and then drop in the address. So that will now link to the email address if anyone wants to do that. Over here, we're going to do the same. I'm going to get rid of the icon and I'm going to drop in a phone number. This is not my real number, by the way. Set my style for this to be 600, leave it as a 400. Go to my list, add in a bit of spacing of about 10 should do. And I'm going to go to the child container again. And where we have the gap, I'm just going to set that to be a 20 like that. Now, you know, you may decide that, you know, you don't like the gap you've got over there. That's pretty easy to sort out. Get rid of the padding and then just add a bit of spacing in, like something like that. 25 works quite well. And just for the sake of it, I am going to increase this right-hand side margin to be about 250 like that. And I've added in 15 for these social icons as well. So that was me just adding in some extra items there. Over here, though, we're just going to pop in a form. So inside container 2, I'm going to get rid of the contents. This has already got a 40/40 inside in terms of padding because we've copied something from above. We're going to go and drop in our form. We're going to go to our button. We're going to left align it. We're going to go to style. I'm going to go to button. I'm going to do it a background color, something like that. Obviously, with your form, you can go and add in more fields. So you might want to change this one to be a phone number. I'm going to say that for all the fields, I don't need to show the label like that. And you can adjust it, right? Adjust it to be how you want. I am going to add in a bit of spacing though. So rather than having 40 on the left here, I'm actually going to make it be about 80, just so it moves it away a little bit like that. That is a really simple, like, one-page intro into a makeup artist. You will notice here, this is coming inwards. Don't worry about that because we added in a bit of padding. If you don't like it and you want everything to be very consistent, get rid of the padding. Let me just show you what that would look like if we didn't apply that padding. So here we go. We get rid of the 40 on the left and it moves out. And how about we get rid of the 40 on the right? So now you get that consistency. So let me just show you that again. So if you want to have that full block effect almost in a way, which I have to be honest does kind of look quite good. And I've just changed the about row sheen there just to add a bit of a color variation. That was a really simple, plain old standard web page with Elementor, but it wasn't that difficult. And if you cut out the bits with me talking, we could have flown through this even quicker. Look, go and check out our course if you want to learn more about Elementor and web design and other tips as well about business and marketing as well. Because inside of there, we have bunged in the how to start a web design business course as well. It's all part of the package. I'm Imran Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life.